You know, sometimes life throws you a curveball so hard it doesn't just knock the wind out of you, it redesigns your entire trajectory. And mine started not in a dusty hangar, but 40,000 feet up, in the very last place I thought I'd ever be, the gilded cage of first class. My name is Jake Thorne, and until 3 years ago I was an F-22 Raptor pilot, feeling the G's of a 1,000-mile-an-hour turn. Now? I'm a grease monkey in a small town called Harmony Creek, doing everything I can to keep my little girl Chloe alive. The flight, Delta 7017 from Sacramento to Boston, was the most expensive $3,500 I'd ever spent. It was Chloe's last chance. A surgical Hail Mary with a specialist in Mass General. She was 5, small for her age, with a heart that just couldn't keep up. The business class ticket was essential. Space, quiet, and hopefully less germs for her fragile little system. I was wearing my best denim jacket, the one with the frayed collar, my only pair of clean but still scuffed work boots, and I looked exactly like what I was, a single dad who'd poured every dime into this journey. We settled into seat 4A and 4B. Chloe, exhausted from the trip, was clutching her threadbare stuffed elephant. Ellie, sniffling softly and resting her head on my chest. That's when I felt the psychic laser beam. Right across the aisle in 4D was Ms. Vanessa Albright. If you Googled power suit, her picture would pop up, wearing that impeccable charcoal wool, gold watch flashing, a spine so straight it could probably stand in for a yardstick. She was everything I was not, polished, expensive, and radiating an energy that said, "My time is literally more valuable than yours." She didn't just look at us, she assessed us. The first time Chloe let out a little cough, Victoria let out a dramatic, audible sigh, loud enough to stop a conversation 3 rows back. Then she leaned over to her equally polished but slightly less aggressive assistant and muttered, "Honestly, some people just don't understand exclusivity, do they? Business class is for productivity, not a petting zoo." I heard it. Chloe heard it. Her small hand tightened on my shirt. I just stared straight ahead, pretending the condensation on the window was the most fascinating thing I'd ever seen. I've dealt with enough judgment in the military, enough condescension from the old guard to know when to pick a fight. This wasn't it. This was about Chloe, but Victoria wasn't done. When the flight attendant offered us orange juice, she made a point of asking the attendant very sweetly, "Darling, could you perhaps disinfect the air around my row? I have a crucial Zoom meeting and I simply cannot afford a cold." She emphasized the word Zoom like I wouldn't know what that meant. It was a calculated, vicious little jab, a silent declaration that my daughter's right to simply exist in that space was offensive to her financial equilibrium. I didn't tell her that the crumpled hospital envelope in my jacket pocket held the diagnosis that had stolen my career. My wife, she couldn't cope with the stress and left, and now my savings. I didn't tell her about the sleepless nights studying cardiac diagrams or the terror that gripped me every time Chloe's breathing hitched. She only saw the denim and the scuffed boots. She saw a drain on her environment, a reminder that the world wasn't perfectly curated for her convenience. I felt a cold knot of resentment, the kind that makes you clench your jaw until it hurts. But I just whispered to Chloe, "It's okay, sweet pea. Just a little longer, then we're on the ground." We were maybe 3 hours out, somewhere over Ohio, when the coffee carts were rolling and everyone was settling into the mid-flight lull. It was the most perfect, boring blue sky you could imagine, and then, wham! It wasn't just turbulence, not the usual bumps. It was a violent, stomach-lurching jolt that felt like the entire plane had been smacked sideways by a giant, invisible hand. Laptops flew. The coffee cart slammed into the bulkhead. The lights flickered, died, and then sputtered back to a dim, sickly yellow. The whole aircraft was vibrating, shuddering like a terrified animal. And then, the unmistakable sound of an alarm, not the friendly chime, but a raw, frantic electronic shriek from the cockpit. Panic, real, gut-deep panic, slammed into the cabin. People screamed. That high, thin sound you only hear when rational thought completely breaks down. The flight attendants, bless their hearts, were trying to keep the lid on, hands shaking as they yelled, "Stay seated! Please remain calm." It was useless. Then the captain's voice. It was tight, ragged, and it cut through the noise like a shard of glass. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain. We are experiencing a major power fluctuation and a catastrophic failure of our primary hydraulic system. I repeat, a catastrophic hydraulic failure. We are declaring an emergency and diverting to Pittsburgh International." My blood went cold. Hydraulic failure. That's not a bumpy ride. That's a death sentence if you can't overcome it. It means no steering, no flaps, no brakes. The plane is basically a giant, heavy aluminum dart. Beside me, Victoria, who a minute ago was judging the organic content of her in-flight yogurt, was now a portrait of petrified terror. Her face was gray, her watch-clad hand gripping the armrest so hard her knuckles were bone white. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me into the abyss. Then the second announcement. And this is the one that changed everything. The captain's voice came back, even tighter, a tremor of desperation overriding his professional training. "We have an immediate life-threatening situation. We've lost the left engine. It's surging and overheating. We need immediate advanced assistance. If there is anyone on this aircraft, military, commercial, any high-performance flight background, please, for the love of God, come forward now." The cabin went silent. 100 pairs of eyes looked at the ceiling, then at each other. No one moved. The sound of the wind tearing past the fuselage was deafening. Suddenly, the cockpit door burst open and the captain, a man named Miller, I would later learn, stumbled out, his uniform soaked in sweat, eyes wide and scanning the business class. He was moving fast, almost frantic, checking faces. And then his eyes locked on me. He stopped dead. He didn't need to ask. He just pointed right at me, his finger shaking. "Seat 4A! Are you Jake Thorne? Manifest says you're former Air Force. Tell me you can fly a crippled bird." The silence was crushing. Every head in business class, every executive, every wealthy traveler snapped toward my row. And Victoria Albright, the woman who had spent the last 2 hours treating me like a stray dog, stared at me with her mouth agape. Her meticulously crafted facade had crumbled, replaced by absolute raw disbelief. The greasy mechanic, the unworthy father, was now the one being summoned to save her pristine life. I gently placed Chloe's head on a pillow. She was crying but silent, sensing the shift. I kissed her forehead. "Daddy's just going to help the nice men fly, okay, honey? I'll be right back. You stay right here with Ellie." I gave the nearest flight attendant a look that said, "She is my entire world. Do not leave her." Then I stood up. I looked down at Victoria, whose eyes were wide with a silent, desperate plea. For a flicker of a second, I could have said something cutting, something about productivity, about exclusivity. But there wasn't time. The moment for petty revenge had passed. This was about life and death. I leaned in, my voice low and hard, cutting through her fear. "Ma'am, you wanted the business class to be strictly professional, right? Well, guess what? This is my kind of business." And without another word, I followed the captain into the dark maw of the cockpit. Inside, it was chaos. Red warning lights were flashing, alarms were screaming different songs, and the air smelled like ozone and burning wires. Captain Miller, bless his soul, was shaking, his hands white on the yoke. "F-22, sir." "Pilot call sign Ghost," I said, sliding into the co-pilot seat. My hands, the hands that usually hold a wrench, were suddenly steady on the panel. The training, the muscle memory of flying 1,000 times more complex machine, kicked in. Hydraulics are completely gone on the rudder and flaps. "And we have a runaway pitch trim. We're flying mostly by cable tension and prayer," Miller gasped, sweat pouring down his temples. I scanned the instruments in 3 seconds flat. "Right engine is failing, sir. Asymmetrical thrust is going to take us into a flat spin if we can't compensate. We need to override the hydraulic pump to the ailerons. I can try to stabilize the yaw manually with asymmetric power adjustments." Miller looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Can you land this thing, Ghost? Can you get 217 people on the ground?" I grabbed the control yoke. The plane bucked violently, a rogue gust of wind hitting us like a truck. I felt the resistance, the pure mechanical fight of a 10-ton aircraft refusing to be controlled. "We don't have a choice, Captain. We're going to slow it down, drop the gear on pure gravity, and land it like a glider with a half-dead engine." For the next 15 minutes, it was an absolute war. I was shouting commands to Miller, adjust the throttle, manually drop the spoilers, while wrestling the yoke. The air was thick with the smell of smoke. Every second felt like an hour. In the back, I could feel the silence, the absolute faith, or terror, of the people whose lives were now riding on my hands. I pictured Chloe's little face, her trusting eyes. I didn't care about Victoria Albright's guilt or my scuffed boots or the money. I just focused on the runway that was starting to look huge in the windshield. "Gear down! Airspeed 85 knots. Hold your heading, Miller!" I barked. We were coming in steep, too fast, fighting the dead weight of the plane. I could see the emergency crews lining the runway. Smoke was billowing from the right wing now. "Brace! Brace! Brace!" I screamed. "Gah!" The landing was a disaster. Until it wasn't. We hit the asphalt with a massive, sickening bang. The tires blew out instantly. The plane veered violently to the left, metal screeching against the runway as I fought the rudder cables, pushing with all the strength in my shoulders, my back, my military-trained muscles. We skidded, bounced, groaned, and finally, agonizingly, ground to a dead stop in a cloud of smoke and foam. Silence. No one moved. Then a massive, spontaneous roar erupted from the cabin. Cheers, sobs, shouts of pure, unadulterated relief. Captain Miller just slumped back in his seat, his hand shaking as he put it on my arm. He couldn't speak, just nodded, tears welling up. You just saved all of us, son." I took a deep, shuddering breath, the exhaustion hitting me like a physical punch. "Just doing what the Air Force trained me for, Captain." A few minutes later, after the emergency doors were opened and the evacuation slide deployed, I walked back into the cabin. The scene was surreal. People hugging, crying, scrambling to get out. I went straight to Chloe. She leaped into my arms, burying her face in my neck, sobbing, "Daddy, I was so scared." "I know, sweetie. I know. But we made it. You and me always." That's when I saw Victoria. She was standing a few feet away, her expensive suit rumpled, her face streaked with tears and soot. She looked like a human being, not a CEO. She wasn't rushing to grab her briefcase. She was waiting for me. When she walked up, she didn't offer a handshake or a card. She just looked at my face, at the soot, at the tired lines around my eyes, and her voice broke completely. "Mr. Thorne, Jake, I don't even know what to say. I owe you more than my life. I owe you an apology that words can't cover. I was cruel. I was despicable. I looked at your clothes, at your circumstances, and I dismissed you. I mocked you, and you saved me. You saved us all." She reached up, almost tentatively, and touched the lapel of my dirty denim jacket. I looked at her, really looked at her, and the anger was gone. Only pity remained. "Victoria," I said quietly, "everyone has a story you don't know. My scuffed boots are from working 12-hour shifts to pay for my daughter's surgery. Your perfect suit. It doesn't give you the right to judge. Maybe next time just lead with kindness, not contempt." She nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I will, I promise. If there is anything at all, I can do for you and Chloe, a fund, a scholarship." I just smiled, holding Chloe tighter. "Just be kinder next time, Victoria. That's payment enough." We left the airport that day in an ambulance, not a limo, heading straight to the hospital. 2 weeks later, Chloe's surgery was a success. The plane story became a sensation for a month, the single dad pilot hero. But the real story, the one that stays with me, is the shift I saw in Victoria Albright's eyes. She never sent money, never called, but a few months later, I heard she'd shifted her foundation's focus entirely to supporting veterans' families in need of medical transport. Maybe she got the message. Maybe she understood that true value isn't measured in revenue, but in what you do when the pressure is on. I'm back in Harmony Creek now, and Chloe is running around, her heart strong and steady. I still wrench on cars. But now, when I see someone struggling, or someone who looks out of place, I remember that day. I remember the CEO's face when she realized the man she despised was the only thing standing between her and a fiery crash. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who is really flying the plane in your life? And are you too busy judging the people in the back rows to notice the heroes right next to you? So, here's my question for you. Have you ever been the Victoria Albright in a situation? Or have you been the Jake Thorne, judged and underestimated? Tell me your story. Was Daniel right to let her off the hook with just a warning, or should he have taken her up on the offer? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you believe every hero should get a second chance, especially the ones who just want to be left alone.